Nokias are real nasty. They know the way of the samurai.
The Allspark mutations that we see in Transformers and its sequel, Revenge of the Fallen, are some of my all-time favorite characters because they don't start out as Transformers. Instead, they start out as everyday objects that get mutated into vicious killing machines. However, choosing which everyday objects get to become psychotic Decepticons isn't exactly just left up to a creative choice. It's actually a high-stakes licensing battle, and nowhere is that more evident than with the first mutation we ever see on screen, the Nokia Bot. You see, Nokia Bot is iconic because he gets spawned in, and his first instinct is to go apeshit and try to kill everyone. And while the scene was played up for comedy, it's integral to the story, since it shows our heroes, and by extension the audience, the physical threat of what would happen if the cube fell into Megatron's slimy hands. Now, as for why the mutations act this way, the film tells us that all forms of modern human technology, such as the microchip, lasers, spaceflight, and cars, were all reverse engineered from studying Megatron. But as for how that correlates into the mutations being vicious killing machines, is never explained beyond that. However, Roberto Orsi, one of the writers for the film, will go on the record to clarify that the cube was never designed to interact with primitive Earth technology, explaining that while Optimus intended to use the cube to restore Cybertron, Megatron's goal was to abuse it by creating Transformers directly, a process that results in soulless primal Transformers. And when you combine that improper use of the cube with the fact that our gadgets are built from Megatron's own reverse-engineered DNA, you get a recipe for an instant Decepticon. The film demonstrates this perfectly during the tour of Sector 7. To illustrate the cube's power, Agent Simmons and Tom Banachek lead our heroes into a sealed containment vault within the Hoover Dam, a room famously scarred with mysterious claw marks. Sergeant Epps questions that Freddy Krueger must have been in the room, only for Glenn Whitman to jokingly point out that Krueger has 4 claws, and that these 3 marks clearly belong to Wolverine. The joke lands with a thud. Simmons offers a deadpan, humorless response that leaves the air in the room thick with awkwardness, possibly as a way of apologizing for the bad timing, or just to appease the intimidating Sector 7 agents. Glenn offers up his personal Nokia cell phone as a demonstration piece. Agent Simmons places the phone inside a heavily reinforced glass containment box, where a focused beam of pure Allspark radiation is funneled directly into the device. As the energy hits the Nokia, the phone doesn't just power on. It violently mutates into a red-eyed, feral samurai-like creature that immediately tries to exterminate everyone in the room. It's a legendary scene that cemented the Nokia Bot in Transformers history. But surprisingly, this pivotal moment was never supposed to feature a phone at all. In the original script, Glenn didn't reach into his pocket for a Nokia. He reached for a white 5th-generation iPod. You see, at the time of production in late 2005, this was the brand new iPod Video, the absolute peak of cool tech. Michael Bay's original vision was for the world's most popular music player to be the very first everyday object the audience saw mutated into a killing machine. As you can see in this early concept art by Tony Kami, the iPod Bot was designed to be a spindly chrome nightmare, even featuring a nuclear explosion on the screen as a grim nod to its new violent nature. Now, thanks to the special features, we can actually see the animatic for how the filmmakers intended this scene to play out. And what's particularly cool is seeing the original design in motion. iPod Bot was intended to have some sort of built-in taser weapon, which technically does appear in the final film. However, we do not see actual electricity come from Nokia Bot. Instead, we see these flashing lights, and we can also hear electricity coming off of him. We can also see him use a minigun, which is something that made it to the final film. And allegedly, he would have played Suicidal Tendencies' Master of No Mercy while attacking. So now with a fully realized design and an animatic ready to go, why didn't the iPod ever make it onto the big screen? Well, the answer comes directly from Michael Bay himself. You see, in the director's commentary for the film, Bay reveals that it ultimately came down to a clash of visions at the highest level. While he was dead set on using the iPod for this sequence, Apple, and specifically Steve Jobs, flat out refused to grant the license. Unfortunately, Bay doesn't tell us exactly what was said in those meetings, but it's not hard to read between the lines. Apple is notoriously protective of its brand image, and likely didn't want their flagship product depicted as a psychotic robot that is quickly murdered. This corporate rejection forced the production to pivot, leaving a massive opening for another tech giant to step in, and of course, that would be Nokia. You see, Nokia wasn't interested in just being a backup. They stepped into the void left by Apple with their absolute crown jewel, the N93i. This wasn't just a phone, it was a high-end camcorder phone hybrid with a unique twisting screen and a barrel-shaped hinge that felt like it was already halfway through a transformation. Now, because the film was in development well before the N93i actually hit store shelves, Nokia provided the crew with a prototype, This early access was a game changer for the design team. Lead robot illustrator Ben Proctor was tasked with taking Tomy Kami's original iPod Bot silhouette and detailing it out to match this specific hardware. As you can see, the main differences mainly come down to the chest, where the iPod screen has been replaced with the Nokia's keypad. However, as you can already tell, this iteration still looks significantly different than the final design, where they made him look like a samurai. Unfortunately, we don't have access to any more concept art or notes as to why they redesigned him, but I gotta say that I definitely love what we ended up getting, since the samurai look was just so unique and gave him so much character. Like for example, the keypad becomes his breastplate and he literally has a kabuto. This is A+ character design right here, and it's such a shame that he gets smoked so quickly. Now, a fun fact that you probably did not notice is that to save on time and resources, the Nokia Bot's corpse was kit bashed together using spare fingers from the Frenzy puppet, with a few fake Nokia bits thrown in. Ben Proctor noted that while it did not look exactly right under close inspection, he hoped that in the chaos of the scene, it would pass on screen as a convincingly destroyed robot. Now, it's ironic that Nokia Bot's corpse was made from Frenzy's spare parts, because as it turns out, the Nokia Bot wasn't the only Decepticon rocking finished hardware in 2007. You see, after Frenzy is decapitated by Michaela Baines and punted into the darkness by Sam, he finds himself separated from his massive body, and is no longer able to transform into a boombox. And so, to survive and stay mobile, he's forced to scan the nearest piece of tech available, Michaela's Nokia 8800, which had spilled out of her purse. But the Nokia invasion did not stop with the Decepticons. If you look closely at the background tech throughout the film, Nokia phones were the universal hardware of choice for almost every single character in the story. When things go south for the Sector 7 agents, they aren't reaching for special military hardware. They're calling in reinforcements on Nokia 3250s. And even our main hero, Sam Witwicky, was part of the ecosystem. His personal phone was a Nokia 7370, which he used to record those frantic last words to his parents after his first terrifying encounter with Bumblebee. Now, this partnership between Nokia and Transformers did not just stay on the big screen. It bled into a massive real-world marketing campaign, which got so meta that Michael Bay himself even appeared in a Verizon Fios commercial to personally swat the Nokia Bot into a fiery explosion. But for fans, the real draw was the several Transformers-themed phones Nokia put out. The Nokia N93i Transformers edition was targeted towards collectors and released to celebrate the iconic scene in the movie. It bundled the original N93i hardware with 3 themed wallpapers, 2 exclusive ringtones, and a pre-installed Transformers mobile game that was developed by Glue Mobile. It's been said that this edition was packaged in a specially designed box and was accompanied by instructions for accessing the content. However, unfortunately, I have not been able to find any images of this. Now, the N93i wasn't the only piece of hardware getting the Cybertronian treatment. Nokia expanded the lineup to target a younger, more music-focused audience, with special editions of the 5300 and the 5700 Express Music. The 5300 swapped its usual look for a sleek, limited edition black chassis with blue keypad lights, while the 5700 leaned into the faction war with specific colorways, a red variant for the Autobots, and a purple version for the Decepticons. The phones were spiced up with branded collectibles like themed straps and transparent crystal cases. Even the software got an overhaul, featuring a custom UI with G1-styled icons, as well as backgrounds that perfectly match the phone's aesthetic. And so, with such a massive multi-device marketing campaign, you'd expect Nokia to be a mainstay for the rest of the franchise. But surprisingly, in the 2009 sequel, Revenge of the Fallen, it's to my knowledge that not a single Nokia phone appears in the film. Instead, LG stepped in as the new lead hardware partner, with their devices featured prominently throughout the film. Even Sam Witwicky moved on, ditching his Nokia 7370 for an LG Shine. It's still a mystery why Nokia did not continue their partnership for Revenge of the Fallen, especially after the massive success of the first film. The closest we ever got to a follow-up at this time was a 2008 contest to win a Nokia N95 preloaded with Transformers G1 Awakening, and interestingly enough, that game was developed by Glue Mobile, the same team behind the movie mobile tie-in game I mentioned earlier. But while the Nokia brand vanished from the sequel, it technically still appears in the animatic where Sam's kitchen appliances come to life. And as you can see, Nokia Bot actually makes a brief appearance as one of the phones brought to life by the Allspark shard. Now, whether or not Nokia Bot was meant to return is debatable. However, I think the model likely served as a placeholder, while the new robots for this scene were still being finalized. However, what I find even more interesting is that a crockpot, which did not make it into the final film, is present in this early footage. And if you look closely at this badass samurai-inspired slow cooker, it's rocking the exact same head as Nokia Bot. Seriously, if I had a nickel every time a piece of household tech brought to life by the Allspark was turned into a samurai, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. However, while Nokia sat out the sequel, they came back swinging for Dark of the Moon. In the third film, Nokia wasn't just a background prop. It was everywhere. The director of National Intelligence, Charlotte Meering, and her aide are seen using Nokia handsets. Agent Simmons rocks a Nokia E72, Carly Spencer takes a selfie with a Nokia N97 Mini, and even the villainous Dylan Gold is seen plotting his schemes on a Nokia N950. But most importantly, Sam Witwicky officially switched teams yet again, ditching LG and returning to his roots with a Nokia X7. And this was the device Nokia marketed the most. They leaned into the renewed partnership with a global blitz, plastering the X7 next to Bumblebee and Optimus Prime on bus stops and billboards. The hype was especially huge in the Philippines, where Nokia partnered with Ayala Cinemas for a massive photo contest. Fans had to grab 7 of their friends, and it's kinda crazy because who has 7 friends in this day and age, and pose with a specialized Dark of the Moon standee for a chance to win an X7 of their own. It was a complete 180 from the silence of the previous film, and when Age of Extinction rolled around, the landscape shifted once again. While the partnership continued, Nokia was no longer the sole king of the hill, having to share the screen with other tech giants like HTC. While our new protagonist, Cade Yeager, was rocking an HTC One M7, the heavy lifting for Nokia was handled by the tech mogul Joshua Joyce and his Nokia XL DualSIM RM1030. To keep the momentum going, Nokia Malaysia launched a massive event as part of the Transformers Age of Extinction Roadshow at the Mid-Valley Mega Mall in Malaysia, where buying a Nokia Lumia 630 did not just get you a new phone, it earned you a pair of tickets to the world premiere of the film and a stash of exclusive Transformers merchandise. Now, when Transformers The Last Knight hit theaters in 2017, it seemed like history was repeating itself. Just as they did with Revenge of the Fallen, Nokia sat this one out entirely. The new phone star of the film was the Liiko Limax 2, a Chinese flagship that took over the primary phone product placement spot. But in a brief blink and you'll miss it scene, we actually come full circle, because an iPhone finally makes an appearance in a Transformers movie. But oddly enough, its only purpose was to promote Inky, a massive Chinese live streaming app. It really makes you wonder, what if Steve Jobs did not turn down Michael Bay? If Apple had leaned in and allowed the iPod to be used in the first film, how much more product placement would we have seen throughout the saga? And more importantly, what would an official iPhone Transformer even look like? Well, we actually have a pretty good idea. You see, long before Revenge of the Fallen was officially greenlit, Hasbro began collaborating with Massive Black, a concept art company that had previously worked with them on the first Transformers film. This time, Hasbro specifically tasked Massive Black with exploring ideas they had for new characters that could appear in a potential sequel. This ensured that Hasbro had a solid foundation of concepts ready to pitch to Paramount when the second film went into production. One of the ideas explored during this phase was the return of the Insecticons. They experimented with the concept of a massive hive that could unleash small scouting Insecticons in the form of cicadas or praying mantises. But as the design process evolved, these bug bots began to merge with the idea of everyday gadgets coming to life. And among these early concept arts, we get a direct look at the Applecons that never were, a Decepticon iPod and a Decepticon iPhone. And both of these guys look sick. The iPod design is particularly sleek, looking like a literal parasite that could hide in your pocket. But the iPhone concept, that one actually might look a little familiar to you. And that's because this specific design was reworked into the Cisco Linksys WRT610N wireless N broadband router Decepticon. And so with that said, that's the story of how Nokia took over Transformers, and it was all thanks to Apple. Now, I would love to know what was your favorite Nokia phone that appeared in the franchise. I know mine's the N93i, so be sure to let me know in the comments below. Now, before closing off this video, I want to give a massive shout out to all the kind folks on the Nokia subreddit who helped me identify several of the Nokia phones I talked about today, because I would have not known what model numbers they were without their expertise, so thank you guys. And with that said, I want to wish everyone a nice rest of their day, and to remember to always keep on theorizing.